Work during waivers, the urge to overuse acronyms like PPR, confusion caused by rostering players you swore you'd never root for.
Only in fantasy does football season come with side effects. Only in fantasy, only on ESPN. Play the #1 fantasy game. Sign up now at ESPN.com/fantasyfootball. Insights provided by IBM Watson.
ESPN, in partnership with Peyton Manning's Omaha Productions, presents Not Just Football with Pittsburgh Steelers defensive end Cam Hayward.
This is not me putting down anybody. Players, coaches, new media, old media. This is just a different version. Hopefully it's a better version. But I've learned from the media. But this is going to be a long season.
Listen to Not Just Football with the Steelers, Cam Hayward, wherever you get your podcasts.
WYNG 1410 Dayton, Dayton's ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, welcome in. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Without Kev Nash today, live here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. Coming at you live on 1410 Wing AM, streaming live at wingam.com, and then, of course, live on Facebook. Search the Justin Kinner Show on Facebook and be a part of the conversation there. You could also watch the show live on Twitter at 1410 Kinner or on ESPN Dayton's YouTube channel. So make sure that you take advantage of the many ways that you could take in Dayton's only local talk show here in the Miami Valley. So take advantage of that. Head to wingam.com to stream it, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or just, hang out with us here live on 1410 Wing AM, the old school way. So welcome in. Hope everyone's had a great day. I want to open up with this. Of course, we have a couple guests that we'll get to coming up around the corner as well. We're going to hear from sports attorney Dan Lust. He's going to dive more into kind of walk us through exactly what the legal findings were within Sue Robinson's 6-page disclosure after the suspension had come down yesterday for Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson. We'll hear from him, and then ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz is going to hop on with us coming up here in hour number 2. So excited for today's show. Lots to dive into. Want to open up with this. Today has validated a take that I've had for quite some time now, and that hot take of mine is Major League Baseball needs to move this trade deadline. Major League Baseball today has done a fantastic job in the sports news cycle of staying relevant. For instance, we've been waiting for almost, 2 years to figure out what exactly was going to come about with this Deshaun Watson storyline, and that's dominated the sports news cycle all day yesterday, all day today. Then you add in the fact that the NFL dropped a bombshell. I don't really think it's a bombshell, but many consider it a bombshell after, of course, the Brian Flores allegations against the Dolphins. Remember those? Remember those allegations? Remember that fiasco that started about a season ago? Well, the findings came out today, which, as of course, I thought was pretty ironic that I wonder how long they've been sitting on that report and why today was a very good day to drop that. I think the league would much rather us be talking about the tampering issues within the league, much so, more so than, of course, a quarterback with 25 with sexual assault allegations against him. But Major League Baseball has held its own for the first time in a long time. I can't remember a day where there has been so many big NFL headlines, but yet when you turn on the radio or you turn on the television, there is major local and national shows diving into Major League Baseball's trade deadline because of something that happened today that has, of course, taken everyone by storm. And that is, of course, the San Diego Padres. They were able to acquire star outfielder Juan Soto and first baseman Josh Bell from the Nationals. All they had to do was send over left-handed pitcher Mackenzie Gore and then some of the top prospects in all of Major League Baseball that they had within their farm system as well. It was quite the haul, and the Nationals, is what they normally do. I mean, when you think about the names like Trey Turner, Max Scherzer, Bryce Harper, now Juan Soto, I mean, my goodness, it's becoming ridiculous watching a team like that who does a great job of developing talent, but yet just refuses to pay them any kind of top dollar. Very frustrating, but we'll get into that later on. But today has proven that I think the trade deadline needs to be moved back. It needs to be moved forward, I should say. It needs to be moved into early September. You start looking at some of the pennant races right now. And of course, you look at the fact that the Padres, who are sitting in that second wild card spot, they're about 12 games back in the division. They're not going to make that 12 games up unless the Dodgers just absolutely collapse. But there's still 2 months of the season left. Today is a big day in Major League Baseball because it's garnered so much attention for some of these big moves that have been made, most notably headlined by Juan Soto, going from, of course, the Nationals to the Padres. Now the Padres, this is a great get for them. I mean, they obviously, I mean, they loaded up. They didn't just get Juan Soto. Of course, they're able to get Josh Bell. I mean, those are two huge weapons, plus the pitcher that they added recently as well. They are building. I mean, not building, but they are literally, finalizing themselves or stabilizing themselves as one of the best rosters, if not the best roster in baseball right now from a star power perspective. It's not often that you tune into a small market team like the San Diego Padres and look at them from a financial standpoint and then a big name standpoint, and they look as powerful as the Dodgers and as powerful as the Yankees. Pretty impressive. Good for them. Good for them. I mean, it's pretty dang cool what they've been able to do. I mean, it's depressing as a Reds fan seeing a team that, isn't swimming in the deep end from a financial standpoint as far as all the revenue that they make, but yet there they are, sticking it to all the other small market teams who claim that they can't do it. But right now, the Padres, again, they're sitting in that second wild card spot. They're 2 games behind the Braves for that, to sit there with that number 1 wild card spot. So, this move obviously was made for one, to have a star again for the foreseeable future, but to also solidify them as a playoff team this year. And you talk about Tatis and you talk about Machado, and now you talk about Juan Soto. Josh Bell. I mean, this is pretty dang cool watching what they've been able to do. And then we haven't even talked about what they have on the pitching side of things. But they have made headlines today. Major League Baseball has been a main talking point today in a day that there are so many other major NFL headlines. Good for Major League Baseball. Here's the problem for Major League Baseball, though. There's a lot of momentum with this. And the one thing that Major League Baseball would love to improve on is creating more buzz around their postseason. Baseball is not as popular as what it once was. And I know that may not be a popular take for those of you who truly feel passionate about baseball. But think about by the time we get to the postseason. I mean, right now it's early August. All right. There's still 2 full months of the season. And for more than 70%, 75% of the league, their team's out of it. Our team's definitely out of it. Our team was out of it the second that Castellini uttered the words, "Where are you going to go?" So, I mean, it's one of those things where more than 75% of your fan base of your sport, they're not even tuning in. They don't care. They don't care. So how do you get their attention? Days like today, fans of non-playoff teams have been locked in today, just kind of keeping an eye on all the movement going around in Major League Baseball as the trade deadline approaches later on this evening. But you know what? You have everyone's attention. You're hanging in there with the NFL and their major headlines. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to wake up tomorrow. You're going to be excited. You might follow the Padres. You might watch a game or two. And then you're going to realize, oh, crap, there's NFL preseason football, which it's preseason football, still better than baseball. Let's just be clear. Preseason football is still better than baseball at this point. All right, college football is going to kick off here in a few weeks. All right, so there's that. NFL's just around the corner. So then once you get to September, baseball's an afterthought. There is nothing happening in September that you give a rip about. You could talk about pennant races all you want. But again, outside of a handful of markets in Major League Baseball, no one's really getting geared up and excited for the Major League Baseball postseason because guess what? NFL, college football, all here, all coming up. The 2 most dominant talking points, the 2 most dominant sports are about to just blanket all of Major League Baseball, and rightfully so. The trade deadline today proved that these headlines could hang with some of the bigger headlines in the National Football League. I'd push the trade deadline back. I have no clue why. I mean, I would much rather get to the point where we have quite a few races within these pennant races, and then imagine with 1 month to go, you make some of these big trades, and it's just a sprint to the finish line. And I think you would create so much more buzz and excitement and urgency in the month of September than pretty much already having an idea of how everything's going to pan out. Because right now, this shakes things up a bit. You're going to tune into a lot of these pennant races and pay a little bit more closer attention now because of some of these moves that have been made at the deadline. But then guess what? Here in about 2-3 weeks, a month, it's old news. All of a sudden, you're going to tune into a Padres game here in a month and a half. And, well, yeah, of course, Juan Soto's there. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's old news. It was a month and a half ago when he was traded there. Who cares, right? But, man, if he would have got traded to the Padres at the very beginning of September, with the playoffs and the postseason just a couple weeks away, my goodness, can you think about the buzz and the excitement? Everyone talking about Major League Baseball, everyone tuning in to see these new faces and new places and paying attention to the pennant races. And I just think that they could have capitalized on all the buzz that they created today, but the buzz that was created today is going to fizzle out. It's going to be gone here in about 2 to 3 weeks, and then it's football. That's all everyone cares about. But I believe you push the trade deadline into September, early that first week in September, hell, the 1st of September. I don't even care. It would be a sprint to the finish line. It would be so much urgency. And I think you would see more position players get traded, because right now it's a lot about the arms and everything. I know the headline today was Juan Soto, but the point is you have a lot of teams who are stockpiling arms because they know that that's the key to, once you get to the postseason. But man, I think you're going to get a lot more bats and a lot more position players on the move as well, because imagine a guy like Drury. Drury's not a guy that's on the radar. I mean, he's on the radar of some teams, but I don't think his stock is as high as what it is with 2 months to go in the season as what there would be with 1 month. If Drury is still as hot a month from now as what he is right now with 1 month to go, a sprint to the finish line, I think the Reds get even more in return for him, because teams know, man, Drury, do we really need to give up top prospects to get him? I mean, there's still 2 months of the season left. That's a lot. But man, there's only 4 weeks left. And we're 2.5 games out, and we need as much firepower as we can. Let's just make the move. We got to do everything we can. Move the trade deadline back. Move it into September, early September. Make these big moves right at the beginning of September. Sure, you're going up against football and some of these others, but look what baseball did today. I mean, the story that came out today involved Sean Payton. It involved Tom Brady. It involved tampering. It involved, allegations of course, trying to pay Brian Flores to lose football games. I mean, there was a lot in that, and you stockpile that on top of yesterday's news of only 6-game suspension for Deshaun Watson after 25 sexual assault allegations. And yet here's Major League Baseball today holding their own in the news sports headlines, in the news sports cycle. Good for them. Good for them. But again, everything that was created today, it would be a lot easier to take the buzz that was created today and snowball it and build that momentum right into the postseason a couple weeks from now. But no, it's 2 weeks. It's 2 months away. All the buzz today that was created, it'll fizzle out here in 2 to 3 weeks. Then we'll get to September. And guess what? September 3rd, Ohio State, Notre Dame, right here on Dayton's home of the Buckeyes, 1410 Wing AM. And college football is here. Forget about it. We're moving on. But man, the buzz today, I'm excited about baseball. And I'll be excited about baseball for a couple more weeks. Then college football is going to get here. And then today's hot buzz, all the buzz that's going on, it'll fizzle out. Don't care. Move it. Move it to September. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show right here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. Your thoughts on that? 518-1410. 518-1410. Should Major League Baseball move the trade deadline to early September? Create that buzz. Create that excitement. You make a big trade at the beginning of September with the postseason just 4 weeks away. It's that sprint to the finish line. These teams it's just a heavyweight slugfest right there. I mean, right hook, left hook, uppercut, knockout punch, 4 weeks, sprint to the finish line. Now you got 8 weeks. Now you got 2 months. The excitement's going to fizzle out and football will take over. Capitalize on these opportunities if you're Major League Baseball. That's what I would do, but that's why I'm here. I'm not important. I don't have any power. So it is what it is. Who cares what I think? But I care what you think. 518-1410. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Now in the street there is violence and lots of work.
The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Presented by Brad Mays with Home Experts Realty. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio. ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
The mid-afternoon and early evening will be partly cloudy, a high near 90. Tonight's going to be mostly clear, a low near 70, and tomorrow's going to be partly cloudy, a high near 93. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Need a U.S. passport? We can help. Hi, this is Mike Foley, your Montgomery County Clerk of Courts. Visit one of our convenient auto title locations in Huber Heights, Clayton, downtown, Moraine, and Centerville. Make us your first destination before you travel abroad. No appointments ever needed. We do passports.com for more info.
And now coming in at number one. It's Kentucky Fried Chicken's $5 Mac and Cheese Bowl.
Mac and cheese, and chicken and cheese. Mac and cheese, and chicken and cheese. KFC. Mac and cheese, and chicken and cheese. Mac and cheese, and chicken and cheese. For $5.
Oh, yeah, baby. Order KFC's $5 Mac and Cheese Bowls on the app. Back for a limited time in original or spicy. That's finger looking good. Price participation may vary for a limited time only.
The roar of our engines, the pump of our heartbeats, the pedal to our metal, the sparks that ignite us, the pistons that push us, the passions that drive us. From the feelings that move us to the places that pull us on the roads that unite us. With nearly 6,000 stores and over 17,000 auto care centers, Napa has America's largest network of parts and care, here to keep you firing on all cylinders.
Ray Magliozzi here for eBay Motors. You're driving along and some nimrod cuts you off. You hit the horn. Jeez, it sounds like a goose in distress. Time to head over to eBay Motors. They have horns for every make and model, not to mention horn pads, steering wheels, wiring, and more. 122 million parts. You can even go for an upgrade. Looks like Mr. Cutoff Man needs a new seat cover. Try eBay Motors, pal. Get the right parts at the right prices. eBay Motors. Let's ride.
Wireless headphones. That'll be $200.
I'll use my Capital One Quicksilver card.
Now that's a hit. You used the Capital One Quicksilver card, which makes you the hero of every purchase. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
I wanted running music, but unlimited 1.5% cash back is pretty heroic.
Good instincts. Every hero needs a theme song. The Capital One Quicksilver card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Looking for dippable chicken that's done right? Just stop by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken for the 10-piece strips meal at a great price. You'll get 10 premium chicken tenderloins that are freshly marinated, honey-dipped, hand-breaded, and cooked to crispy perfection, along with 2 of our large sides, 5 fluffy biscuits, and 3 of your favorite dipping sauces. These are the best strips. No bones about it. Make your family and your wallet happy with a 10-piece strips meal, only at Lee's. Famous for chicken.
Hey, here to tell you about my friends at Cordell Transportation. They're now hiring Class A CDL drivers and offering a $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, a $5,000 sign-on bonus. Home daily, dedicated lanes, and no-touch freight. Brand new equipment as well. Medical, dental, vision, and company-paid life insurance. Call Cody right now. Apply online at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
Wendy's new Strawberry Frosty is here, so check your watch. Is it Frosty time yet? It probably is. The hour hand would be on, I'm feeling snacky. And the minute hand would be on, relaxing with a rich, creamy Strawberry Frosty on a summer day, just digging into that smooth, chilly deliciousness and vibing. You know, depending on what kind of watch you have. When it's time for Frosty time, choose wisely. Choose Wendy's Frosty and Classic Chocolate or New Strawberry.
Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Starting trouble. No one likes that. We'll get you set up for some stronger starts. You might just need a fresh charge, and we'll take care of that free of charge. But if it is time for a new battery, we've got replacement batteries that'll fit your needs, starting at just $69.99. You can learn more about our battery selection at AutoZone.com. That's what makes us America's #1 battery destination.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Claim based on data from the NPD Group 2021.
The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash live here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM, 518-1410. That's the number to call if you want to jump in on the conversation. You can do that right now. Twitter at 1410 Kinner, Kinner, or of course, Facebook. Search the Justin Kinner Show and jump in on the conversation on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. Okay, so tonight, the Cincinnati Reds will be right back in action again. They look at this point, like we talked about yesterday, the Reds right now, their only headlines moving forward are, of course, what names they move on from the trade deadline, of course, which we've already seen them move on from names like Tyler Naquin. And obviously, that's not a huge name, but a recognizable name. But the biggest name that the Reds have moved on from is Luis Castillo, who just was acquired, of course, by the Mariners. The Mariners have been quite the trade partner for the Reds. The Reds have done a lot to kind of help propel them into the postseason conversation, of course, with sending them guys like Eugenio Suarez and Jesse Winker, and now Luis Castillo. So obviously they're in pretty good shape as far as that's concerned. I mean, when you talk about the Mariners right now, they're 12 games back in the American League West, but right now sitting comfortably in the wild card conversation, and having a guy like, of course, Luis Castillo is going to help kind of potentially put them over the top. So there is that. But other news today, of course, in that Luis Castillo deal, the Reds were able to get quite the haul in return for him. Shortstop, again, you talk about Noelvi Marte. He has been added to the Dragons roster after being acquired in a trade with the Seattle Mariners. Got this from Tom Nichols earlier this afternoon. Marte was acquired from Seattle along with infielders Edwin Arroyo and pitchers Levi Stout and Andrew Moore in exchange for Major League pitcher Luis Castillo. Just late last month, of course. Marte is currently ranked, and this is important, as the Reds' #1 prospect by MLB.com. And he's the Reds' #2 prospect according to Baseball America. Of course, Ellie De La Cruz is who Baseball America has as the Reds' #1 prospect as we currently sit here today. Now, he's ranked number 17 as far as he's the 17th prospect in minor league baseball by MLB.com and number 46 by Baseball America. It always interests me to see the gap or the disparity between MLB.com and Baseball America, but nonetheless, it's pretty obvious the Reds have a very special talent that they were able to flip Luis Castillo into. So that's pretty good for the long-term future of the Reds, at least hopefully. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. So we will see Marte and some of these other key guys open up, of course, with the Dragons. So I think that's pretty important. But thank you to Tom Nichols for passing that along earlier this afternoon. As I talked about the Reds, they'll be in action coming up later on tonight, 6:40 first pitch, 6:10 coverage begins right here on 1410 Wing AM. So how about the Nationals, though? So the Nationals make a lot of headlines today, of course, and they're trading of Juan Soto. And I've never seen, like, it just fascinates me looking at a franchise like the Nationals, because I can't tell if they are a really, really good franchise or just a very, very poorly run franchise. You can't be a bad franchise if you continuously find yourself with these elite star players, right? Like us as Reds fans, wouldn't we kill to have an organization that was constantly, building up players to be the likes of a Juan Soto or the likes of course, of a Trey Turner or an Anthony Rendon or a Max Scherzer or Juan Soto? I mean, the two biggest names that the Reds have had to move on from in the last 12 years, honestly, it's Johnny Cueto and Luis Castillo. And as good as both of those guys are, I don't think they shed light at all on a Max Scherzer. They don't come close to having the same type of impact as a Trey Turner or a Bryce Harper or a Juan Soto. We're talking the Nationals continuously develop not just good players, but elite level players. And I don't know what's worse, being a Nationals fan or a Reds fan. Now, you're probably saying, well, it's better to be a Nationals fan because they've at least won a World Series in recent history. Hell, we're just a few years removed from the Nationals' last World Series. But, think about how, for me, I laugh when I see Reds fans get super emotional. Oh, I can't believe the Reds moved on from Taylor Naquin. Oh, man, I was a big fan of Naquin. I mean, he was just underrated as far as what he brought to the stop. Talk about, Tyler Naquin, really? Really? While Reds fans are upset about Naquin, fans of a franchise with real players on it are having to say goodbye to Juan Soto. I don't think that we're even close to being in the same category here. But that's why I'm saying I don't know what's tougher. I don't know if it's tougher being a Reds fan where we don't get to see that level of quality player, elite player. Like I said, in 12 years, the Reds have traded away a lot of good players. And don't give me the Jesse Winker stuff. As I've said, Jesse Winker has been very, very average, above average at times. His hottest streak of baseball came in the 3.5 months before last year's All-Star game, and then he plummeted after that. He's been very average to below average with the Mariners this year. Jesse Winker is not a name that I'm like, man, I miss him in Cincinnati. Castellanos has been really, really good, but the Reds didn't draft him. They didn't develop him. You know what I'm saying? That's one difference right there. But if you want to include him in there, that's fine. But he wasn't around long enough to really make a significant impact, although he was a part of that, of course, the 2020 60-game COVID-shortened season where they made the postseason. But we're talking, you got to think, if you were a Nationals fan, you had to say goodbye to Trey Turner. You had to say goodbye to Bryce Harper. Now Juan Soto. You had to say goodbye to Max Scherzer. If I repeated a name, I apologize. But, man, I think it's much tougher to be a Nationals fan than it is a Reds fan at this point. I think it's tougher to bid farewell to guys like that. The Reds, I mean, we get punched in the gut multiple times because, for one, we are told how great these prospects are, and they never develop into anything elite. Okay? And I think Luis Castillo is pretty dang elite, but I don't think that the loss of him is going to really impact this franchise as much as you think. I mean, you lose Bryce Harper, that's a legitimate elite player. All right, you lose Trey Turner. That's a big loss. You lose Juan Soto. That's a humongous loss. This is young elite talent. I don't know how the Nationals could bid farewell to this many big names and still have a fan base that is as supportive of theirs as what we are of the Reds. Which fan base has it worse? The Nationals fan base or the Reds fan base? 518-1410 or on Facebook. I'm curious your thoughts on this. Do we have it worse as Reds fans? Because the Nationals, okay, they bid farewell to these elite players all the time. I think it's defeating that every time you feel like your team is embarking on something special, like Juan Soto, man, we're going to have him around for a long time. Bryce Harper, who was in my lifetime, probably one of the most talked about prospects being called up to the majors. Chris Bryant was another big name, of course, but Harper was bigger and better, and the Nationals just move on quickly. It wasn't that big a deal to them. They don't care moving on from guys like Trey Turner and Bryce Harper and Juan Soto and Max Scherzer and guys like that. It doesn't bother them. They have no problem not even trying to financially keep these guys. Now, if every once in a while you find yourself in a situation where you might be embarking on a rebuild and it doesn't make sense to fork over top dollar, okay, fine. But I have a hard time believing that you just have never seemed to be in the right situation when you look at the last 6 years moving on from guys of that level. That's a problem. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Nationals fans, I think it's much tougher that every time you think that, we're not just about to be good, we're about to be elite with guys like Juan Soto and company, and then they move on. Or is it tougher to be Reds fans who never feel like we're about to embark on something special because we never see talent to the level of a Juan Soto or a Bryce Harper? Now, I think we're close now with Tyler Stevenson and Jonathan India. Don't get me wrong. I think this is as close as that I can recall in quite some time where the Reds might be embarking on something special, something elite. All right, I think India could be elite. I think Tyler Stevenson could be elite. Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo, they look elite. Graham Ashcraft, really good. 518-1410, and now let's go to, of course, the Facebook page and kind of get people's, opinion there. John Slayton's. John, I hope you're doing well. Good seeing you a few weeks ago, by the way. John says, I would think it's harder to be a Nationals fan. You win the World Series a few years ago, and now you're one of the worst teams record-wise in Major League Baseball. Reds haven't won anything in 32 years, so the expectations are very low right now, unfortunately. And again, we're talking, both of these scenarios are bad. I think both fan bases have it rough, but I want to know which one has it better. Would you much, and like to John's point, for instance, I grew up poor. I grew up poor. I never had money growing up. So, I've never had that fear of missing out on something because I've never had something. So it's really not that big a deal to me. Imagine being poor or very, very rich and then losing all your money and being poor. I think it's tougher to be a Nationals fan. You have it made. You're rich. You have elite talent. And then the talent goes away, and now you're trying to figure out how to navigate being a fan with no elite talent on the roster. To where being a Reds fan, you're always poor, right? You're always eating ramen, TV dinners, right? Like that. I don't know. I'm trying to think of how to express that. Interesting enough. Continuing to go down the list here. Let's see. Scott Campbell says, the Nats losing Harper to a division rival has to be brutal. I can't imagine being a Nats fan watching that happen. And that's the other thing, too, is the fact like the Nationals, their front office, they just don't care because, say what you want about the Castellinis, but I have a hard time believing that if they had an elite level, I don't know if you trade that person to a division rival. Can you imagine if Joey Votto before he signed that extension, if the Reds said, you know what, we're not going to offer him an extension. We're going to trade the MVP to the Cubs or the Cardinals. You know how brutal that would be? Although the Cardinals, actually they weren't really going to trade Albert Pujols to the Reds, but the Reds came close to signing Albert Pujols, by the way, but that wasn't through a trade. But I think that the even bigger FU to the fans from the Nats ownership is the fact that you're right. Sending them to a rival like that. I think it's tougher to be a Nats fan. The Reds fan, we haven't been spoiled enough. We've never been spoiled as Reds fans in my lifetime. Now, we have a lot of older listeners who, of course, grew up with the Big Red Machine and grew up watching the Reds win a World Series in the 90s. I was 1 year old the last time the Reds won a World Series. I don't consider that winning a World Series in my lifetime. I just don't. I've never known the Reds to be great or elite. So I never feel like I'm missing out on something because I've never had something for me to experience to then have it be taken away from me to know the difference of having it versus not having it. Nationals fans, you've won the World Series. You've had elite talent like Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Anthony Rendon, Max Scherzer, now Juan Soto, and now you don't. And now now it's tough for them. Like we quickly adapt to being Reds fans and having crap rosters and having nothing to look forward to outside of Reds Fest, the Caravan, and the occasional first week of the season where we think we might be good. Much tougher to be Nationals fans, that's for sure. All right, it's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Coming up around the corner, we're going to dive into a conversation with sports attorney Dan Lust. We're going to dive into more about what did he pull away from the findings of Sue Robinson, the retired federal judge that was the third-party arbitrator for the National Football League, in, of course, the investigation and the case against Deshaun Watson. Well, one thing to keep in mind, Deshaun Watson right now is suspended for 6 games. We're still waiting to find out if the NFL is even going to, if Roger Goodell is going to step in and add more games to it. We may not see Deshaun Watson until week 7 of this upcoming National Football League season, but I'm here to tell you that there is a good chance we could potentially, depending on what the NFL does, we could see him in week 1 as the starter of the Browns, and I'll explain that when we come back.
Hello, it's John Kozik, founder and president of TurboTrack Realty, and I buy real estate as is, fast for cash. Give us a call today for an all-cash offer at 614-470-2000, 614-470-2000. I buy inherited properties, vacant homes, rentals, commercial properties, and apartment buildings. Give us a call today and speak with one of our friendly staff members at 614-470-2000, 614-470-2000.
Someday it may happen to you. OVI, DUI, criminal, even divorce custody. And when it does, the one thing you're going to need is legal advice. Someone who can help. The Cordalis Law Office is here to help you with multiple areas of focus. Attorney Carl Cordalis and his team have you covered. The Cordalis Law Office. Experience, integrity, reliability. Visit cordalis-law.com for more info or give them a call today, 937-224-1212, to hear how they can help you.
Do you know what people see when they Google you? Search engines don't always get it right. And when they're wrong, it's your reputation on the line. So what do you do when you don't agree with your search results? Call Reputation Defender at 800-401-6681. Reputation Defender is one of the most trusted names in online reputation repair. We have over a decade of experience in fixing people's search results, and we can help you too. Using cutting-edge approaches, Reputation Defender pushes unflattering information down to lower pages of your search results, where few people ever look. We also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, letting you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. You owe it to yourself to take control with Reputation Defender. Visit www.reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 for free advice on your situation. That's 800-401-6681.
Staples stores are a new world of possible with innovative tools for small business and remote workers and learners. Explore more at your local Staples store or staplesconnect.com.
The Motor City Madman is back. Ted Nugent, Detroit Muscle 2022. August 11th, Rose Music Center at the Heights.
Got me a rock and roll band, it's a fever all.
Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com or the Rose Music Center box office. Album available now.
Go ahead and
Ted Nugent.
Timothy's Bar and Grill on Brown Street are huge supporters of the Dayton Flyers, and we know you are too. Join Timothy's Bar and Grill in supporting some of your favorite former Flyers like Ryan Mikesell, Trey Landers, Jordan Seibert, Scoochie Smith, and more as they reunite back at UD Arena in pursuit of the $1 million grand prize in the basketball tournament. It's the TBT on WING. Don't miss a second of the Red Scare presented by Timothy's Bar and Grill all tournament long right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio 1410 Wing AM.
O'Reilly.
Improve your vehicle's gas mileage and power with Royal Purple Fuel Injector Cleaner at O'Reilly Auto Parts. And right now, buy one 6-ounce bottle and get one free, plus earn double O Rewards points with your purchase. Save money on gas and boost performance with Royal Purple Fuel Injector Cleaner at O'Reilly Auto Parts or O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I want to take more chances with the embroidering.
Henley's vision for a new clothing line is coming into focus.
Dramatic.
They'll need an on-staff photographer to put their collection in the spotlight.
Why is no one taking shots of these?
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Sports attorney Dan Lust is going to join us coming up here 7 minutes from now. We'll chat with him about some of the legal findings that he really kind of noted that that's just common folks. We just didn't pick up on some of these things. I really want to know some of the information that he was able to pull from the report from Sue Robinson yesterday, of course, in the report that came out basically explaining and pinpointing her decision-making as far as why 6 games was the fair punishment for Deshaun Watson. So we'll get to that with sports attorney Dan Lust. Plus, we'll dive into everything that's happening today. But, of course, all the punishments that were handed down for the Miami Dolphins. They had multiple draft picks taken away, tampering. There was so many, examples of evidence, of course, working against them of tampering for Tom Brady and Sean Payton and all this weird stuff that was going on behind the scenes. The Brian Flores situation, of course, accusing the ownership of coming to him and literally willing to pay him to lose games, incentivizing losing, even though the NFL incentivizes losing by, giving them the top players in college football. I've always said, I think this whole concept of freaking out about the idea of, oh my gosh, can you believe that the team asked him to lose? Just look at the rosters that some of these owners give their coaches and tell me that that's not the same thing as asking their coach to lose. They're not helping them win. Well, we'll get to that with Dan Lust coming up here around the corner. As I stated a little bit ago, it was interesting. I was able to hear an interview with Albert Breer earlier today, and he brought up a point that I had not even thought about when it comes to this upcoming season with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, 6 games. Yesterday was all about the, oh my gosh, it wasn't enough, or oh my gosh, he shouldn't have been suspended at all because there was no, he hasn't been legally found guilty of anything, and yada, yada, yada. But the one thing that we're waiting on now is Sue Robinson comes out, says it's 6 games. Now we're waiting. The NFL has, I believe, till the early Thursday morning to decide if they are going to increase his suspension length, if they are going to add to the suspension, of course. And the one thing that does is it opens the door for Deshaun Watson. By adding games to his suspension, it opens the door for him actually to be the starter for the Browns in Week 1. Albert Breer earlier today on Colin Cowherd's show, of course, is where I heard this from, and it fascinated me. It's a point that I hadn't even considered. If the NFL adds to the suspension of Deshaun Watson and he appeals it and he takes them to court, you could play during your appeal. He'll be available for the Browns Week 1. This is another reason why I do not believe that Roger Goodell and the NFL is going to step in and increase the suspension. I think he's going to be hands off. I think he's going to, come out and BS everyone and say, well, I really respect Sue Robinson. I really respect the work that she put in, over the last 3 weeks following the trial to, hand down a fair punishment. And we don't want to overstep our boundaries with her. So we're going to go ahead and, keep it as is. Because if he tries to add or increase the suspension length and Deshaun Watson appeals it, man, if you thought people were pissed about him only having a 6-game suspension, imagine what people are going to say when he's the starter for the Browns in Week 1 against Carolina and Baker Mayfield. I really do not feel like the NFL is going to step in and increase the suspension length for Deshaun Watson. I'm Justin Kinner hanging out with you here on a Tuesday. We'll step away for a few moments. Sports attorney Dan Lust will talk about Deshaun Watson and, of course, the 6-game suspension and what we can expect from the NFL. Plus, we'll also dive into everything that happened today with the Miami Dolphins and, of course, all the findings that came about that report as well. We'll be back. More of the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash next.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
Oh, oh, O'Reilly.
Stay cool this summer with AC Pro and O'Reilly Auto Parts. Right now, get a $15 O'Reilly Auto Parts gift card after mail-in rebate with the purchase of select AC Pro ready-to-use refrigerant products that include a hose and gauge. Beat the heat before you hit the road with AC Pro at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Are you drawn to a career in public service that takes you into the great outdoors? ODNR is looking for its next class of natural resources officers, a group set to protect and serve Ohioans.
I've always wanted to work outside and wanted to work with people and be a part of a team as well. Those experiences led me to becoming a natural resource officer.
Find out if you have what it takes. Go to ohiodnr.gov/get-hired to apply.
Frickers heats up summer with boneless brew and barbecue, boneless frickin' chicken wings, Brew City fries, and barbecue rib tips for only $12.99 dine-in only. Frickers, where kids 10 and under eat free every day. Boneless brew and barbecue. Say it with me.
Boneless brew and barbecue.
Remember that Frickers always has barbecue baby back ribs. Frickers serves up whole and half slabs every day. Boneless brew and barbecue at the home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Frickers.
At the Montgomery County Veterans Service Commission, we help veterans and their dependents navigate the process of applying for benefits administered by the VA. We can assist with VA claims, pensions, and a variety of benefits including emergency financial assistance, transportation, and legal services. If you are a veteran or a spouse of a veteran, a wide range of services may be available to you. Always at no cost to veteran, we are honored and proud to serve all Miami Valley veterans. Contact us today at 937-225-4801.
Hi, this is Eddie Sorrell, Body Shop Manager at Germain Honda Beaver Creek. Our technicians have over 125 years of total experience. That means we can repair your vehicle correctly and efficiently. So when you need a dependable body shop, we're here. And we repair all makes and models with new state-of-the-art equipment to get you back on the road quickly. Plus, we offer loaner cars during service and free estimates. Stop by and see us. Germain Honda Beaver Creek, State Route 35, just east of 675 between Xenia and Beaver Creek.
Calling all residential HVAC service technicians. Do you enjoy your work but want to be challenged on larger industrial and commercial HVAC systems? Have you chosen to forgo health insurance because your premiums are too high? Did you know that REAK covers 100% of your health insurance premiums for you and your family? If you answered yes to any of these questions, contact REAK Services today. We're hiring dedicated, talented technicians who are looking for a long-term career in the HVAC service industry. Apply today at REAK Services, that's RIECK services.com.
Staples stores are a new world of possible with innovative tools for small business and remote workers and learners. Explore more at your local Staples store or staplesconnect.com.
You want more local content from Dayton's ESPN radio station 1410 Wing AM? Make sure you subscribe to the WING 1410 Dayton YouTube channel, where you can watch all your local shows live or go back and rewatch previous episodes of The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, The Keith Byers Show, Talking Out Loud with Sully, and more.
Now's the time to get a great deal on Kubota construction equipment, featuring durable Kubota engines, more comfort, more productivity, more get it done right. The Kubota construction lineup shows up ready to work every day. Right now, bring home select Kubota equipment for 0 down, 0% APR for up to 36 months. Now through September 30th. See us or go to KubotaUSA.com for more details.
See Columbus Equipment Company, 7570 New Carlisle Pike in Dayton.
Justin Kinner back with you here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. Of course, as we now know, after, of course, it seems like we've been waiting forever and ever. Of course, we were waiting forever and ever to figure out what former federal judge, retired judge Sue L. Robinson, what decision she was going to make after, of course, 3 weeks removed, after having to look over all the findings, of course, as far as what suspension to hand down to Deshaun Watson. And we knew that no matter what the suspension length that would be handed down to Deshaun Watson, that it was going to be met with a lot of pushback. If you would have done the indefinite suspension, there would have been a lot of people screaming about that. If you did the 6 to 8 to 10, I've heard people today, oh man, if they would have done 12, I don't think it really would have been as much pushback. No, there would have been pushback. This is a very, sensitive matter that we're talking about here, to where no matter what the decision that was going to be made, unless it was like the, decision that was made by Major League Baseball with Trevor Bauer, that's the only decision that could have been made that would not have been met with a lot of backlash, in my opinion. But joining us now, sports attorney Dan Lust, who's been a regular on the show for quite some time now. Anything like this comes up where I'm not smart enough to talk about it, I bring someone on who's more than smart enough to talk about it. Dan, welcome in, sir. How are you?
I'm good, and you sound pretty smart explaining the potential backlash of 12 games, 4 games, a year. I think you nailed it, but certainly I'm happy to break down the finer points with you.
So, of course, the findings came out yesterday, and as I stated, I don't think there was a suspension length that would have come out that would not have been met with a lot of backlash. Let me ask you, were the 6 games, when you initially heard the 6 games, from your legal expertise, is that where you expected this to kind of fall without having all of the information in front of you at the time?
No, I didn't. I think if you read Judge Robinson's decision, she bases the Watson conduct on past precedent. So if you asked me, on Saturday, before we had any inclination of the hearing, I would have said if Judge Robinson found that there was sexual assault, she found that she put, that he put individuals in grave harm of danger, and obviously there were 4 individuals whose cases were presented by the NFL, I would have thought, okay, if she found those elements were met, with respect to all 4 of these, these accusers, I would think maybe 6 games is the baseline, right? Because of past precedent, maybe when you're looking at guys like Roethlisberger or Zeke. But the amount of women involved, obviously the NFL didn't look at all 24 women for purposes of this disciplinary hearing. They did look at 4, and even with 4, there's no precedent for that. So you think if you have an unprecedented case, right, just the way our court system works, you would set new precedent. But Judge Robinson kind of curiously relied on old precedent on cases that don't really bear resemblance to what we're looking at with Watson. So I found the number and the reasoning to be a little surprising. We'll put it that way.
So when you start looking that over, there was very explicit details in there of what he had done within some of these, massage appointments. And again, I'm very confused because all we've been hearing is that there isn't enough legal evidence to, obviously in multiple courts of law that found him not necessarily not guilty, but didn't find him guilty, of course. What more needed to be in those reports for us to look at that and say, well, damn, what are we waiting for? Clearly he's done something wrong, or does that not fall in any kind of legal, legal binding issues?
It's tough. It's tough, and I think there's a lot of people that have kind of more questions than answers today, because you had Roger Goodell about a year ago elect not to put Deshaun Watson on the commissioner's example list, and then what happened between that and the disciplinary hearing? He was cleared of by 2 separate grand juries. So, and the grand jury, the bar to be indicted is very low. It's something called probable cause, which I don't know is lower than what the court, what Judge Robinson looked at here, which is something called a preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not. So if Watson can win at the indictment level, which has a very low standard of proof, which you'd think that Watson would have a hard time winning in that proceeding, and he loses with a higher standard of proof, it doesn't necessarily add up, right? If people are here asking questions, how is it possible that he can avoid the commissioner's exempt list, he can avoid criminal charges, yet he gets suspended and found that he's committed, engaged in some form of sexual assault? Those are inconsistent findings. And, the best way to explain it is that different, adjudicators, be it a grand jury or a judge on separate days, different states, different forms, can come to separate verdicts. It's not really that fair, but that's just the way the justice system works out. But I think you do point out that there is an inconsistency here. And I think the most troublesome one, right, is between the NFL, right? Because the NFL said there wasn't enough to put Watson on the commissioner's exempt list really towards the end of 2021. And you go from that to a 6-game suspension, right? And now reports that the NFL wanted 12 games a year. I'm not sure how to make sense of that from NFL HQ, how he can't go on the commissioner's exempt list, yet you're not satisfied with 6 games and you want a year suspension. I have a hard time, making sense of those two things from the same office, mind you.
So Roger Goodell, he comes out and let's say that he does not accept the 6-game suspension from retired federal judge, of course, Sue Robinson, and goes ahead and he doubles it or he puts the indefinite suspension in. What does that do for any future similar cases or any kind of future cases that would potentially involve Sue Robinson? Wouldn't this just defeat the purpose of having this process moving forward if he does go about doing that and it just overrides her decision?
Yeah, be it Sue Robinson or any other judge that fills that role at a later point in time, the precedent that will be set, speaking of precedent, is that role doesn't matter. That the real decision comes with Roger Goodell, which would look a lot like the old system, which the NFLPA and the league worked very hard to rework in this 2020 CBA. And they said, let's appoint a independent arbiter first, and then Goodell can weigh in. And I'm sure the league was the one asking for Goodell to, be the person at the finish line, being the final, the final level of appeal. I just, to your point, like, it would just be a massive waste of time if Goodell just came in and reinstituted the year that the NFL was reported looking for, or the 12 games, which was reported as the lowest the NFL would accept in terms of his settlement. If he just institutes one of those, 12 a year or any higher number than 6, Judge Robinson was kind of a waste of time, right? I don't mean to speak ill of her. I'm just speaking of the process. If Goodell would have just done this, he could have came to his decision a month ago, and we didn't need to waste time waiting for, decision watch and submitting, the briefing from both sides, from the union side and the league side. If that's Goodell's MO, maybe the blame is on, the union for allowing Goodell to remain as part of this disciplinary process. You certainly could have a world where the appeal is taken directly to the federal courts from Judge Robinson, but that's not what the union and the league agreed to. They agreed to let Goodell be a part of this. So the optics are what they are, but there's really no one to blame here other than the parties that negotiated this, right? The union and the league allowed this to happen. So, if anybody wants to get mad at Goodell, he's the one that basically told the union that he wanted this to be a part of the procedure. They didn't have to accept it, but it's certainly codified within the personal conduct policy.
We have sports attorney Dan Lust hanging out with us here on the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Dan, there's obviously multiple ways that the league can go about this, of course, and I have really no idea. I know we're supposed to have opinions on sports talk type formatted shows, but I don't really know what my opinion is because I have no idea which way he can lean, because I could see the NFL and Roger Goodell basically going towards the direction of, hey, no matter what decision I make, I'm going to get backlash. But at least this way, I could just point all the blame towards Sue Robinson and say, hey, she's the one that made the decision. We put this in the collective bargaining agreement. We're going to support her and her findings and in her decision and go from there and basically use her as the scapegoat. Or they could, of course, step in and add more games to the suspension, of course, or an indefinite suspension, maybe add money to the fine. But what that opens the door up to is, of course, him appealing and then potentially being able to play week 1, because you could play during the appeal process, like what we saw, different severity of issues, of course, years ago. But with Tom Brady years ago, he got to play the entire season as he fought the decision in the appeal in court.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem here. And I think, I will point this out just from the legal standpoint. 6 games, we can talk about it on and off. That's not really the number that we have to worry about. We have to worry about really this number of 3 days. And now it's 2 days. The clock is ticking on the NFL to decide whether or not they want to appeal. So for most appeals, if you're not in the NFL world, the real decision of whether to appeal or not is the likelihood that you will win, right? The likelihood that if you take a case up on appeal, you spend the money, you spend the time taking a case to the circuit court level or the United States Supreme Court, if you're going to win or not. But if the NFL appeals, they do so with kind of, inside information. The Roger Goodell is where the appeal goes to. The NFL will make the decision to appeal if they do it, knowing what Roger Goodell is going to do, right? He's going to up the suspension. I don't think that's really a bold prediction. I think that's the most likely outcome. But, right, these next 2-3 days is the NFL making their calls around the league, speaking to other owners, right? The risks and reward, the advocacy groups, some have spoken out against Judge Robinson's findings, how a decision to appeal will impact them positively or negatively. And then the other point that you pointed out, right? If you appeal this to Roger Goodell, right? You send the appeal up to Goodell, then you know what Watson's going to do, right? Watson's going to take this to federal court. And then the saga goes on and on and on. And I think Watson and the league are aligned in one thing. They want to put this in the rearview mirror as quickly as possible and just have some final settlement. So I think that's what the NFL is thinking about. I personally would be very surprised if the NFL didn't appeal this, but I certainly see the reasons against it. You can come up with one of those pros and cons lists and, have a pretty even weighted between the pros and cons. It's just knowing Goodell's history, having his fingerprints all over these Deflategate decisions, the Zeke Elliott stuff. He just seems to be one that wants to get involved in these controversies. So I would be surprised if they did not appeal this.
Wow. Sports attorney Dan Lust with us here. Dan, on the way out, because I know you have a lot of other appointments coming up, but the other report that came out today, of course, was the investigation that I think everyone forgot about was, of course, the Miami Dolphins when the Brian Flores situation from obviously that came out, last season, of course. And I have no clue when this report actually wrapped up. I said I found the timing to be quite ironic that, today, after all the attention was on the Deshaun Watson fallout, that today was a very unique day to all of a sudden release the findings of this. But what did you find most unique about the reports and the findings that came out about the tampering allegations and, of course, the reports of them potentially, paying Brian Flores to lose football games on purpose? What was most unique as far as what you saw come out of that case, in particular to that investigation?
Yeah, quickly on the timing, I did a lot of media yesterday, and I said, what is the NFL doing? Why can't they make a decision to appeal today? And then, obviously, this report comes out, which I'm not sure why it had to come out today. And coincidentally, Stephen Ross receives pretty similar to the length of the suspension. It's right around 6 weeks that Deshaun Watson at least has right now. So I did think that was interesting. But in terms of substance, if we get to the finer points of this, Brian Flores, a case that I filed very closely, Brian Flores alleged that the owner of the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross, offered to pay him $100,000 per loss. And that was a big story. And all these allegations were kind of spawned from that Brian Flores class action discrimination lawsuit. So the headline, right, is that the Dolphins lose a first-round pick, a third-round pick, and, this is obviously $1.5 million monetary fine and the 6-week suspension for the owner. Now, the investigation did pertain to tanking, but if you look very closely at that decision or the investigation, it didn't find that the Dolphins actually lost games on purpose. So the headline is that as a result of this tanking investigation, the Dolphins got punished, but this report didn't find that the Dolphins actually tanked. It found that impermissible conduct with Sean Payton and Tom Brady, that was somehow warranting of a first and a third round draft pick forfeiture. So I think that's the big takeaway. Yes, they investigated the tanking. They did find that Stephen Ross made some kind of comment in jest about losing games on purpose, but they did not actually find that the Dolphins lost games on purpose. So a little bit of mixed messaging if you read the finer points there, but the NFL did not find that the Dolphins actually tanked games, which I think is a takeaway people are losing sight of.
All right, sports attorney Dan Lust, excellent stuff there. Appreciate you taking time and hanging out with us today just to give us a little bit more background and more insight into, of course, the fallout from the 6-game suspension handed down to Deshaun Watson yesterday, and then, of course, the report and the findings that came out of the investigation into the Dolphins today. Dan Lust, give him a follow on Twitter at SportsLawLust. Give him a follow. Does a great job. He's been a regular on the show for quite some time now. Dan, thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
My pleasure. Speak soon.
All right, good stuff there. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash live here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. If you missed our conversation with Dan Lust regarding, of course, everything that's going on with the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson, we'll have that up on the website. Make sure you're subscribing and downloading the Justin Kinner Show podcast in your Apple iTunes, Google Play Store. That's where you can go back and listen to the show in its entirety, as well as select segments and all interviews, like the one we just did there with Dan Lust, as well as our upcoming interview in hour 2 with ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz. All right. Interesting takeaway there. I mean, every time I think I start to hear enough opinions about why the NFL is not going to add games to the suspension of Deshaun Watson, I hear, we have a conversation with Dan, who really believes that although there's a lot of reasons not to add games to the suspension as far as what can fall out from the retaliation or whatever with the lawsuit against the NFL in return, it is really on point for Roger Goodell to get his, to get dirty in this, to jump into the deep end and to add games and potentially open the door for Deshaun Watson to play week 1 of the NFL season. We'll be back. 518-1410. More of the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash when we come back.
Oh, no, we're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue, and then we'll take it higher.
Did you know that Masterforce has thousands of tools at Menards? Any tool you want, we have. There are hammers, drills, pliers, levels, wrenches, grinders, sanders, air compressors, nailers, workbenches, mowers, blowers, chainsaws, floor jacks, knee pads, work lights, fans, Whew. And that's just a taste. Want power, performance, durability? Come check out the wide range of products from Masterforce, exclusively at Menards.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Looking for future leaders we can believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Ohio. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It includes learning to listen, accepting responsibility, being a good role model, and it's about respect. The result, it transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
If you need new roofing, siding, or gutters, skylights, or patio enclosures, if you're a homeowner or business and need someone you can trust, don't take a chance. Enhance with Lance. Lance Roofing and Siding in Fairborn has been satisfying customers since 1993 and hold an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Lance Roofing and Siding, 8460 Dayton Springfield Road in Fairborn. Call for a free estimate at 864-2722. That's 864-2722 or online at lanceroofing.com.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
People who call QC Kinetics are pretty much fed up with joint pain.
It's to the point where it's affecting their quality of life. Maybe they can't pick up their grandchildren anymore, or golf, or play tennis, or walk with their friends.
Dr. Justin Garzone, Medical Director at QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in regenerative medicine, giving lasting joint pain relief with no drugs, no steroids, and no surgery.
The great thing about our therapies, there isn't any downtime. There's no side effects. So patients can get our treatment and continue on with their day-to-day life.
And Dr. Garzone speaks from experience. He had excruciating back pain and got relief at a QC Kinetics clinic.
Over a very short period of time, the pain went away completely, and I've had absolutely no symptoms or pain since my treatment.
Call QC Kinetics now for your free consultation.
Call QC Kinetics, 937-936-0325. That's 937-936-0325. 937-936-0325.
Staples has everything you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Don't send your kids back to school. Send them forward at Staples, the working and learning store.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
What? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Presented by Brad Mays with Home Experts Realty. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio. WING 1410 Dayton. Dayton's ESPN Radio.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
The mid-afternoon and early evening will be partly cloudy, a high near 90. Tonight's going to be mostly clear, a low near 70, and tomorrow's going to be partly cloudy, a high near 93. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Weather brought to you by Cullet Seal Coating, protecting the asphalt surfaces around your home, office, or commercial property. Crack filling, asphalt sealing, and parking lot striping. Find us at culletsealcoating.com.
The Big Hoopla is proud to welcome the TBT, the basketball tournament, back to the Gem City. Join the Big Hoopla and all the fun and excitement as we cheer on Dayton's alumni team, the Red Scare. The stakes are high as TBT is a $1 million winner-take-all event. We'll see you at UD Arena for the Dayton Regionals and the TBT Championship July 24th through August 2nd. For tickets and sponsorship information, visit DaytonHoopla.com. That's DaytonHoopla.com. Timothy's Bar and Grill on Brown Street are huge supporters of the Dayton Flyers, and we know you are too. Join Timothy's Bar and Grill in supporting some of your favorite former Flyers like Ryan Mikesell, Trey Landers, Jordan Seibert, Scoochie Smith, and more as they reunite back at UD Arena in pursuit of the $1 million grand prize in the basketball tournament. It's the TBT on WING. Don't miss a second of the Red Scare presented by Timothy's Bar and Grill, all tournament long right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio 1410 Wing AM.
Did you get the Clement Horizon clean last night? I don't want another barnacle incident. Where's Ivan?
Kiki's head of docking operations just jumped ship.
What do you mean he's sailing around the world?
She needs a new marina manager to help keep her head above water.
Yeah, the tide's perfect, but we are slammed.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
This is a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup sound experiment. We're looking to find the perfect way to hear Reese's so you'll buy more of them. Here we go. Reese's, 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 Reese's. Hey, get out of here, you little stinker. Reese's.
Reese's. Reese's.
Peanut Butter Cups. That breathy one sounded very creepy, am I right?
Ray Magliozzi here for eBay Motors. You're driving along and some nimrod cuts you off. You hit the horn. Jeez, it sounds like a goose in distress. Time to head over to eBay Motors. They have horns for every make and model, not to mention horn pads, steering wheels, wiring, and more. 122 million parts. You can even go for an upgrade. It looks like Mr. Cutoff Man needs a new seat cover. Try eBay Motors, pal. Get the right parts at the right prices. eBay Motors. Let's ride.
Wireless headphones. That'll be $200.
I'll use my Capital One Quicksilver card.
Now that's a hit. You used the Capital One Quicksilver card, which makes you the hero of every purchase. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
I wanted running music, but unlimited 1.5% cash back is pretty heroic.
Good instincts. Every hero needs a theme song. The Capital One Quicksilver card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Someday it may happen to you. OVI, DUI, criminal, even divorce custody. And when it does, the one thing you're going to need is legal advice. Someone who can help. The Cordalis Law Office is here to help you with multiple areas of focus. Attorney Carl Cordalis and his team have you covered. The Cordalis Law Office. Experience, integrity, reliability. Visit cordalis-law.com for more info or give them a call today, 937-224-1212, to hear how they can help you.
Hey, here to tell you about my friends at Cordell Transportation. They're now hiring Class A CDL drivers and offering a $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, a $5,000 sign-on bonus. Home daily, dedicated lanes, and no-touch freight. Brand new equipment as well. Medical, dental, vision, and company-paid life insurance. Call Cody right now. Apply online at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
Justin Kinner back with you here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. Dan Lust, sports attorney. Appreciate him taking time and hanging out with us here today. ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz joins us coming up here around the corner. So regardless of where we're at with the moral part of the conversation of Deshaun Watson, the bottom line is Deshaun Watson's suspension that was announced yesterday does have an impact, not just on the Browns, but even on the Cincinnati Bengals, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Ravens, and pretty much obviously every team in the NFL, but the AFC North and the AFC as a whole. It definitely shifts a lot of the betting odds and a lot of the expectations for how the AFC is going to pan out. I still believe that there will be a 9 to 10 win team that misses the postseason coming up this year out of the AFC. That's how stacked the AFC is. That's my hot take, if you will, as we sit here just days before the first preseason game, of course, the Hall of Fame game, if you will. But I do believe there'll be a 9 or a 10 win team that misses the postseason coming up. I don't think it's that hot of a take. We've seen teams in the past. I mean, the Patriots won 9, 10 games or 11 games, whatever it was the one year before the expanded playoff. But that's how deep I think, the AFC is going to be. But after the news broke of Deshaun Watson's suspension, the Browns went from plus 3,000 to plus 2,500, giving them a 3.85% chance to win the Super Bowl. So their Super Bowl odds increased significantly. Now the Ravens, Bengals, and Browns, who are all expected to be battling it out for the top of the AFC North, they have the same odds. The Browns now have the same, they have the same odds to win the Super Bowl as the Bengals and the Ravens. I know Bengals fans, you want to believe that it's you and then everybody else, and that's not the case. There's really not a gap between the Bengals and Ravens. I don't care how much you beat up on a depleted Ravens team a year ago. There's no gap between you guys. I think the quarterbacks wash out. I think that although the passing game is better for the Bengals, I think that the offense, the explosiveness of the offense, the Ravens, before Lamar went out with 5 weeks to go in the regular season last year, they were in first place and they averaged 27 points a game. They were explosive as hell too. The Ravens are a very explosive offensive team. Okay, so the gap between the Ravens and the Bengals, I don't believe that there is one. I believe that if there is a gap to separate the two, it's going to really come on the defensive end. And again, it really comes down to, are the Bengals the defensive team they were in the regular season last year, which was very average, or are they the defensive team that they were in the playoff run that led them to the Super Bowl, which was very, very good. Great defensive back play. Linebackers were fantastic. Of course, the pass rush with Hendrickson was awesome. So it's just really going to come down to which defense. I think we all know what offense is going to show up for the Bengals. It's just going to come down to what defense shows up. And right now, heading into the season with all this drama with Jesse Bates, I don't think you're going to be as good as you were last year. And last year, the regular season defense wasn't elite. But maybe they pick up where they left off in the postseason. And that would bode well for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, as far as the AFC North odds are concerned, not only did the Browns Super Bowl odds improve, but we did see a drastic change in the AFC North odds as well. They went from plus 275 to plus 230 to win the division after yesterday's breaking news. Now, once again, it'll be up to Jacoby Brissett to keep the Browns competitive while their quarterback's on the shelf for the first 6 weeks. The Browns' first 6 games, obviously, as we talked about, against the Panthers, the Jets, Steelers, Falcons, Chargers, and Patriots, if they could at least go 3-3, if not better, they will likely be in a good spot in terms of staying in the divisional race by the time Watson makes his way back. My concern is this. We act like, and me as a Browns fan too, like, again, talking about Deshaun, the quarterback, not Deshaun, the person. Yesterday was about Deshaun, the person. Today it's Deshaun, the quarterback, and what he brings to the table. This is a guy that has not played since January 2nd or 3rd, I believe, of 2000. Okay, it's been a while. All right, it's been quite a while. Okay, so at the end of the day, since as I mentioned, early January of 2000 is the last time we saw him play in an actual game. Sat out all of last season. We'll miss the first, 6 weeks of this season. Obviously getting time in camp right now. And, I'm very curious to see how they're going to balance, or how they're going to kind of utilize him in the preseason. Are they going to give him a lot of snaps to prepare him for the upcoming season, knowing that he's going to have to sit out those first 3 weeks? And when I mean sit out, I mean not even be allowed in the, in the facility. He won't be able to play the next 3 weeks either after that, but he'll at least be able to practice with the team and get some reps in during practice. But I'm very curious to see how Stefanski is going to go about preparing for this upcoming season. You want to give Brissett as many as the first team reps as you can, but you also, anytime you have a chance to get Deshaun some kind of rhythm and experience with this first team unit as well, you have to do that as well. So we'll see what happens. But here's my concern. We haven't seen Deshaun play since 2000, holy smokes, 2020. My faults, folks. Sorry. 2020, early 2020. It's been 2 years. To act like, okay, he's out for the first 6 weeks, Folks, he comes back against Baltimore. And then the very next game will be his first home game against the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's not an easy game. I mean, I'm not telling you guys something you don't know. I mean, you go Lamar Jackson. I mean, in the first 6 weeks that he is back, he has Tom Brady, he has Josh Allen, he has Lamar, in no particular order. But in the first 6 weeks that he is back, within that time frame, it's going to be Lamar Jackson. It's going to be Joe Burrow. You're going to have Josh Allen in the mix there. You're going to have Tom Brady in the mix. I believe they play the Rams, if I'm not mistaken. The bottom line is it's brutal. Acting as if dropping a quarterback who hasn't played in 2 years, just all of a sudden he shows up for the Browns and, well, they're beating Lamar and the Ravens. Oh, they're beating Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Oh, they're going to beat Josh Allen and the Bills. They're going to beat Tom Brady and the Bucs. I'm sorry. I don't think it's as much of a given as what we think it is. Browns fans yesterday, from a football perspective, were excited because that means we have Deshaun Watson for way more games this upcoming season than we had anticipated, which means he obviously gives the team the best chance to win and to win at a high level and to have a chance to win the division and have a chance to be a potential 1 seed, have home field advantage throughout the playoffs and, potentially get to a Super Bowl. All of that rides on the shoulders of Deshaun Watson. Well, guess what? He hasn't played since early 2020. I would be kind of foolish to sit here. And by the way, I'm not giving out my predictions just quite yet, but I have to kind of sit back and think through this a little bit, to act as if a guy that hasn't played in 2 years is just all of a sudden going to get under center after 2 years off and with all the distractions that he has had to face in the last 2 years, that he's just going to get under center and just ball out. I mean, he was killing it the last time he was in the league 2 years ago. I mean, we talked about the numbers yesterday. I mean, I think the last 6 games that he played in the league, he was averaging 330 passing yards and 4 touchdowns a game. He was unstoppable. In one of those games, he torched the Bengals. Now, it's a much different Bengals team from 2 years ago. I get that, but you see my point. All I know is that I'm a little hesitant as a Browns fan to sit there and just say, hey, you know what? Deshaun's going to be there week 7, and they're not going to lose a game from week 7 on. I don't know about that. It's a brutal schedule. Deshaun Watson against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I mean, to expect him to be on his A game. I know the secondary is not as strong as it once was for the Ravens, but I mean, my goodness, that's a tough defense to have to face right off the bat. And then week 2, I know you're at least at home for that one, but Hendrickson and the defense for the Bengals. And like I said, do I fear the Bengals defense from the regular season last year? No. The Bengals defense from the regular season last year couldn't stop freaking Baker Mayfield. So no, I'm not afraid of last year's regular season Bengals defense, but I am afraid of that postseason Bengals defense. And that's a much smaller sample size, but I believe that Bengals defense is capable of looking like what they did in the postseason this upcoming season. We'll see what happens. But I mean, I do think that for those who think that the Browns are lucky, the Browns are lucky, yes, that Deshaun only got a 6-game suspension. They're very lucky. They're very lucky. But it's not as lucky as you think, acting like that Deshaun Watson comes in week 7. If they are 3-3 and it takes him a month to get going, I mean, 2-2 maybe. If the Browns go 2-2 in the first month that he is back, which is going to be tough when you have the Ravens, when you have the Bengals, when you have the Buccaneers in that stretch, you have of course the Bills in that stretch. 2-2. If you're 3-3 to start, you go 2-2 next. I mean, that's you're 5-5. That's going to be very tough. It's going to be very tough because you would have to go probably 5-2 the final 7 games to put yourself at 10 wins. Remember, I said earlier, I think a 9 or a 10-win team is going to miss the postseason this year. It could be the Cleveland Browns, and it could be early season losses because he was out or because he was still in the midst of getting back in the groove of things. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash here on 1410 ESPN Radio. We're live on Facebook. Head to Facebook, search the Justin Kinner Show. Your thoughts on this? Phone lines are open, 518-1410. But yes, I mean, we're literally, this isn't a video game where all of a sudden you just change the quarterback and all of a sudden everything just takes off from there. Yes, ideally, I think big picture, the Browns are going to be significantly better because of Deshaun Watson at quarterback. I was reading yesterday the way that they manipulated his signing bonus. They're able to manipulate it again for next year. So they're going to have about $30 million on the cap for next year as well, before a lot of more money comes off the books. I mean, the bottom line is Deshaun's contract doesn't start to impact the Browns until 2024. So the Browns' window to win, as far as their best opportunity to win, is this year and next. Because after that, that's when all of a sudden 50 mil is going to be slapped against the cap. Then that's going to be really tough to navigate through as far as I'm concerned. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 Wing AM. How about the other thing that came out today with the National Football League? I guess, by the way, I'm so tired of hearing about tanking in the NFL that they had to do this humongous investigation to see if there was any kind of wrongdoing by the Dolphins as far as tanking is concerned. Tanking is as common a practice in American sports as any other practice in American sports. It drives me crazy. Every time we talk about the NBA draft or the NFL draft, it is always about rewarding the crappy teams. I have said this for many, many years, and I will continue to say it. The way that the NFL goes about rewarding teams in the draft is the worst way possible. You are incentivizing losing. To get mad at the Dolphins for doing what the league incentivizes teams to do anyways, which is lose, is ridiculous. How can you tell teams that we're going to reward you with the best talent coming out of college? You're telling your league that the worst teams are going to be rewarded with the best talent coming out of college. Where is the incentive to win, especially if you know that your roster's not bad, but you also know that your roster's not good enough to make the playoffs or to at least make a run in the playoffs? If you have an average roster, for instance, the Pittsburgh Steelers last year, what was the motivating factor? I know they made the playoffs, but you saw what happened when they got there. And a lot of things had to go right. As many things that had to go right for the Bengals to make their Super Bowl run, that's how many things had to go right for the Steelers to even make the damn playoffs. But you think that the Steelers last year, now they're one of the few organizations that they don't tank. I give the Steelers a lot of credit. I hate giving the Steelers credit, but they don't tank. Mike Tomlin, there's a reason he's never had a losing season in the National Football League. They don't tank. And that's multiple. There's many seasons where they've had Mason Rudolph be the quarterback for the majority of the season. Big Ben was a shell of himself last year. I mean, he wasn't even close to being the Big Ben of old. He just was old Big Ben. They made the playoffs. They try to win no matter what. But you can also argue that that's kind of stupid of them. Because you win 8, 9, 10 games, you get a average to below average draft selection. It's much tougher to build your roster that way on either side of the ball. Now, they're a very well-run organization. They know how to maximize their draft picks, and that's fine. But there's very few good organizations in football. The Steelers are one of the few. The Cowboys are a very good drafting organization. They draft real well, okay? But, man, they just make boneheaded decisions as far as, free agents are concerned, and they're just, like Stephen A. says, an accident waiting to happen. The Cowboys draft real well. The Packers draft real well. The Bills have been an organization as of late that have drafted well. The Bengals, I'm not willing to say they draft well yet because I need to see how they continue to develop. I mean, what do you mean? They've killed it in the draft. The reason that they're in position to win is because of the draft. No, the reason they're in the position to win is my whole point. They got rewarded for being bad. Oh, you win 2 games? Congratulations. You get a franchise quarterback in Joe Burrow. Can't wait to do business again sometime. Oh, wow, you only won 4 games? Congratulations, Mike Brown and company. You get Jamar Chase. Come on down. Give me a break. Stop rewarding teams for losing. Start rewarding teams for winning and trying. The Pittsburgh Steelers should have had the number 1 overall draft pick last year, right? No, maybe not. That wasn't the example. 2 years ago, the Steelers, I think, they won 8 games or whatever. Had you expanded the playoffs, the Steelers are in the playoffs. But because they only won 8 games, guess what? They got penalized. They got an average draft pick and whatever. But you know what? You should reward the teams. If you take the draft order, as I've said before, you take the teams that make the playoffs, move them out of the way. You look at the first 2 or 3 teams that missed the playoffs. That means that they won 7, 8, 9 games, missed the playoffs. But you know what they did? They tried to win the whole time. Winning 7, 8, 9 games means you are trying to win, but you just don't have the pieces to win consistently. Reward those teams for trying to freaking win. And then the teams that purposely do not build their rosters to compete, the teams that purposely don't spend money in free agency, the teams that purposely do not try to build contenders, you give them the number 1 player, the top picks coming out. You give the Bengals, who won 2 games, Joe Burrow, really? And now, look, they're benefiting from it. But, yeah, that just shows you that, hey, you get rewarded for being a loser. Now, good for them for being a loser and capitalizing on it. I mean, hell, the team I follow, the Browns, they've been losers for a long time, and they've had multiple number 1 draft picks, and they still haven't been able to figure it out until as of late. So I'm not taking shots at the Bengals necessarily, but I mean, it is kind of, it's weak to me that, you're good because you were bad for so long. Instead of just being a team like the Steelers who they try to win no matter what. The Ravens, the same thing, is what it is. But to sit there and have an investigation into the Dolphins because of potential, tanking, which is what your league rewards. Your team rewards, your league rewards losing. Why are you wasting money, resources, and because the owner may have paid the coach to lose. Well, yeah. How about, do you think Zach Taylor got money to lose? He got paid his salary, of course. I mean, if I'm Zach Taylor, I'm pretty pissed off because they put him in position to lose so they can get top draft picks. So Brian Flores, you're dumb for not taking the money to lose ball games because, hey, no other bad coach in the league was getting money to lose ball games. Is what it is. I get so annoyed with sports when they try to act like they're just so shocked that, oh my gosh, no, we would never pay our coach to lose. Well, you're giving your coach a salary to run the worst roster in football. That's pretty much the same thing. Am I right? It is what it is. ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz. He joins us coming up here 7 minutes from now. David Shaw says that the Ravens defense will be the best in the division. The Ravens defense is always in line to be one of the best in the division, but I still think that, I mean, if you look, I know no one looked at what the Browns defense did last year, but the Browns gave up the least amount of points, the least amount of yards, the least amount of touchdowns in the AFC North last year. But the Ravens, I can't sit there and say they're going to not be the best defense, but they're not as strong as they used to be. So I don't know about that. I think that the Bengals defense is solid. I think the Steelers have the best defense in the AFC North. Statistically, the Browns have the best defense in the AFC North, but even I can't say that they have the best defense in the AFC North. It'll be interesting. Let's talk with Jason Fitz. He joins us next. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Do you have foot pain? Foot pain is not normal regardless of your age or job. Podiatric physicians are the most qualified doctors to care for your feet and can provide important foot care solutions or shoe inserts to better manage foot pain. Ohio Foot and Ankle Medical Association podiatric physicians are located throughout the state and are dedicated to providing the highest quality foot and ankle care. We've been serving the profession and the public for over 100 years. To find a member of the Ohio Foot and Ankle Medical Association near you, visit associationsadvanceohio.com.
God, I'm so stressed. Our business is growing. We've got people all over now.
Ooma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending Ooma and their all-in-one phone, video, and collaboration solution.
Ooma?
Yep. Switching to Ooma is a cinch. Just $24.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Now you're feeling it. Visit Ooma.com. That's OOMA.com to learn more. Ooma. Smart communications for the smarter business.
In the wee hours of the night, when everyone else is fast asleep, you're the one on third shift, burning the midnight oil. When a part fails and everything comes to a grinding halt, regardless of what the clock on the wall says, you leap into action. Grainger is with you and all the ones who get it done. With 24/7 customer support by phone or click to chat. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Staples has everything you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Don't send your kids back to school. Send them forward at Staples, the working and learning store.
Frickers heats up summer with boneless brew and barbecue, boneless frickin' chicken wings, Brew City fries, and barbecue rib tips for only $12.99 dine-in only. Frickers, where kids 10 and under eat free every day. Boneless brew and barbecue. Say it with me.
Boneless brew and barbecue.
Remember that Frickers always has barbecue baby back ribs. Frickers serves up whole and half slabs every day. Boneless brew and barbecue at the home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Frickers.
Calling all residential HVAC service technicians. Are you tired of working 12 hours straight with no overtime? If you answered yes, contact Reek Services today. Reek has been servicing commercial and industrial HVAC systems in the Miami Valley for 130 years, and we're hiring dedicated, talented technicians who are looking for a long-term career in the HVAC service industry. At Reek, you're eligible for overtime pay if you work more than 8 hours. Apply today at Reek Services, RIECK services.com.
You have empty office space to fill or home office to create. You know what you need. You know what you'd like. But you also have a pretty good idea after you've shopped around the usual places what you need and what you like might not happen. Well, then you haven't been to Charles Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. Nobody has their selection. Nobody has their discounts. And every week, there's something new. If you need office furniture, Larrick's Warehouse Outlet can sell it to you for half the price and below manufacturer's selected prices. Half price and below on hundreds of items. Selection from budget to the best. Really, desks from $50 to $5,000. Filing cabinets from $25 to $500. Before you go anywhere else, do yourself a favor and come to Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. With 25,000 square feet of selection, you're not going to go anywhere else. Larrick's Warehouse Outlet at 23 McOil Avenue, Dayton. Open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. Larrick's, continuing the tradition.
Sports injury, low back pain, or are you interested in improving your performance and getting to the next level? Orion Sports Medicine is truly a unique sports medicine and physical therapy clinic and training facility. We offer a highly educated staff that is experienced working with athletes from the recreational and youth levels to elite professionals. We offer services that include PT, functional assessment, wellness, fitness, return to sports, sports medicine, strength and conditioning, and more at our state-of-the-art facility in Miamisburg. For more information, visit orionsportsmedicine.com.
Menards carries grocery items with the selection and pricing you wouldn't expect. Keep your food fresh with help from Ziploc. Ziploc offers a variety of sandwich, snack, and freezer bags that feature an easy seal top that ensures your sandwiches, fruits, vegetables, or chips stay fresh. Protect your lunches. And get Ziploc bags from Menards with 11% off. Good through August 7th. Savings are mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
At Family Dollar, we've got more of what you want for back to school. You'll find your favorite cereals, plus a huge selection of apparel and footwear. Family Dollar, helping you do more.
There's never any FOMO with the iHeartRadio app. You won't ever have to miss out on your favorite shows and contests with this radio station again. Radio 24/7, 365. We're here when you want us. Stay connected and listen anywhere when you download the free iHeartRadio app.
Hi, I'm Emmitt Smith, Pro Football Hall of Famer and 3-time champion. Trust me, I know about joint pain.
Pro Football's all-time leading rusher Emmitt Smith talks about chronic joint pain and exciting new regenerative treatments from QC Kinetics.
I know what it's like to fight through pain, but now, you and I, we have help. QC Kinetics.
QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in advanced, all-natural regenerative medicine that can give you lasting relief with no drugs, no downtime, and no surgery. Do you suffer with constant pain from arthritis or injury? Pain in your knees, hips, shoulders, or lower back? Don't assume steroids, pain meds, and surgery are your only options. Regenerative, restorative, natural solutions are now available.
Don't let your joint pain keep you from doing the things you love.
Call QC Kinetics now for a free consultation and learn how regenerative medicine can repair and restore damaged joint tissue.
Make the call to QC Kinetics. Tell them Emmitt Smith sent you.
Call QC Kinetics, 937-936-0325. That's 937-936-0325. 937-936-0325.
The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash live here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. Of course, we had people chime in, of course, on the defenses in the AFC North right off the bat. I mean, Shaw defending the Ravens defense from last year, talking about the injuries, which he is not wrong. Justin Smith, the Steelers defender on the show, of course, says, I love how everybody underestimates the Steelers. This offense won't be handcuffed with Big Ben again this year. They have the best D in the North. Now, keep in mind, I mean, I see what you're saying that they won't have Roethlisberger holding him back, but I mean, I would buy into that argument more if the guy that you're talking about replacing him wasn't Mitch Trubisky. I'm just saying. But yes, I buy into the Steelers having the best defense in the North before the Ravens, but the Ravens defense isn't bad. And honestly, statistically, technically, the Browns had the best defense last year as far as least amount of points given up, least amount of yards given up, least amount of touchdowns given up. But I watched the Browns last year. They didn't have the best defense in the North, but very weird. Numbers can always sing and dance. Hey, speaking of the Browns, it was nice to talk about the Browns there for a moment and it not be about all the uncomfortable stuff that we've had to talk about all week. And joining us now to continue the uncomfortable conversation, we have ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz. Jason, I'm sure this has been the most fun week of radio, having to talk about all the uncomfortable Deshaun Watson stuff, I'm sure.
Oh, man, it's difficult and it's hard to navigate how to feel about all of it. And to use a really professional word I've used a lot this week, it all feels icky.
Yep.
Like this whole situation feels gross. And I'll say this to you, and I think you know how genuine it is. Like, my heart actually really hurts for a lot of Browns fans that want to just be able to watch great football and not have to apologize for who their quarterback is. And I don't know that you're going to be able to do that for a long time. Like, I can't imagine what it would feel like if it was my favorite team and I had to navigate how do you handle this entire situation?
Well, Jason, it's not nearly the same thing, but I mean, you're a Raiders fan. I mean, it's kind of how uncomfortable I'm sure you felt last year. Like, everyone knows how diehard of a Raiders fan you are, but then when the reports of John Gruden and the racist emails came out, it's very tough. Like, I mean, obviously we know what side you're on, but it's just like you have to start defending your fandom at that point because people are coming at you because, oh, that's the team you support, and that's what Browns fans are going through right now. I feel like I'm having to constantly put out a disclaimer every 10 minutes. Hey, we're talking about Deshaun the quarterback, not Deshaun the person at this point. And I feel like I'm going to be doing that for quite some time.
Yeah, and one of my co-hosts on radio today said, even if the Browns win the Super Bowl this year, the documentary that's made about it will start with Deshaun Watson's press conference. This will always be a part of this Browns season. And, like, it hurts my heart to say it. I get no joy out of watching fans have to go through this weird portion to navigate. And I don't pretend it's simple. Like, there's so little that would ever make me not I can't think of anything that would make me not live, eat, and breathe silver and black. So I know where Browns fans are coming from. And guess what? The quarterback himself, you got a top 5 quarterback in the NFL playing for this team. It's just hard to have that conversation apart from everything else.
Yep, and let's just rewind to yesterday, Jason, when the news came out. We kind of had an idea. Sunday night, I believe it was, is when they announced or when the NFL Players Association kind of released their statement ahead of time. They're trying to win the PR battle there of, hey, we're trying to pretend they didn't know what the ruling was going to be. And maybe they didn't, but let's be clear. You don't put that out unless you're confident that that the player that you're fighting for is going to get minimal games in the suspension, according to what many people believe he should have got. When they put out that we're going to support Sue Robinson's decision no matter what it is, we're not going to appeal no matter what it is, they kind of let us know ahead of time that it was going to be a minimal game suspension, and we were kind of all bracing ourselves for the PR disaster that was about to unfold for the NFL. And sure enough, the 6-game suspension comes down. Where did that suspension fall in comparison to what your expectations were of what you were thinking it was going to be before it was announced yesterday?
Not as far off. Like, I thought it was going to be 8. Like, I thought half a season. The money was the biggest difference. I expected 8 games and $10 million was sort of what I was thinking what we would hear. Something that cripples to a certain extent, but then also, the team, but also sends a personal message. The fact that there was no fine, which speaks to the collective bargaining agreement, which says in that language, suspension or fine. So this Judge Robinson really went straight down the middle of exactly what she's allowed to do with the collective bargaining agreement. So it was a little shorter, but also the biggest surprise to me, honestly, is I went back and I read the 16-page report a dozen times. The biggest surprise to me is that she openly says, yeah, I think that the NFL proved they handled their burden of proof. They proved he did it. They proved he did these things and that he knew these things were wrong. And it's a 6-game suspension. Finding the navigation of those two things is really difficult for me.
Yeah, because there was the Browns defenders, if you will, or just trying to compartmentalize this, of course, was, well, I mean, there's two court systems found him not guilty, and basically there was not enough proof to find him guilty of anything. And then that's just what a lot of Browns fans were banking on. And then you read that report yesterday and you're like, well, I don't know what I'm reading is icky, as you talked about a little bit ago, and gross. And I don't know how you read that and then say, 6 games. That's where I come into play. I'm not, it's almost, I'm advocating that my quarterback should have been suspended longer, but this isn't about quarterback or NFL. This is about what was in that report. It was very strange reading some of the details that were in there. And then that's where the questions started coming in. Well, how do you justify 6 games if you're reading that in there? And basically her saying, yeah, I feel like he's not being as forthcoming as what he should be in this situation.
Right. And so she says that she believes that he did expose himself. He knew that contact was unwanted. He hasn't really been, he hasn't asked for forgiveness. He hasn't shown any contrition in that process. She believes all of that. And also, in the same report, she says, well, it's his first offense. But if you found that he did this to multiple women, how can multiple women be a first offense? So that's hard for me to really wrap my head around. But really, this comes down to, she says, the NFL's prior punishment for it doesn't support a longer punishment. That's the part that surprises me. And that's why I think the NFL, if they choose to appeal this to themselves, have a pretty good a base foundation to stand on, because they're going to be able to say, look, she found that our evidence is enough. We don't agree with her final ruling. Like, I think the NFL's in a terrible situation. This is the worst lose-lose I think I've ever seen the NFL in, because if they don't appeal it, they're saying that they don't care about women, essentially. That's how it will look to the PR world. If they appeal it, they're saying that this brand new process is broken and they need to step in. That's also a terrible look. So I think the NFL's lose-lose, but they got here because they've been too light on these things in the past. That's why this punishment was brought down that way.
Yeah, it almost seems like she was basically, kind of slapping the hand of the NFL, saying, hey, guys, how are you going to sit here and say you want a season-long or an indefinite suspension when you've taken it so light, not just on the players in years past for this, but also, as far as the ownership side. I mean, you think about the Robert Kraft situation, the Jerry Jones, and, of course, Dan Snyder, which they're, deep in the middle of that investigation right now as far as that's concerned. So it's almost kind of penalizing them for their lack of penalizing in the past as far as how serious that they have taken this. Jason, another thing I heard earlier today that really caught me off guard that I hadn't even thought about is that the other reason that the NFL has their backs against the wall, Albert Breer mentioned this earlier today, that if Roger Goodell comes out and wants to add games to this suspension, and Deshaun Watson and the Players Association counter with the lawsuit and they want to appeal, he's eligible to play week 1. Deshaun Watson could play week 1 if they add games to this suspension and he comes back and appeal, which is something I hadn't even thought about until earlier this afternoon.
Yeah, so not only that, but then think about the layers of this. So you've got a couple of options. If they appeal and he plays, if there's an injunction and he plays until they figure it out, this could even go all the way into next season. And I don't know that I love that. If you look at the Browns' schedule, in fact, if they start a 6-game suspension later in the year, that's a tougher schedule, right? So, from a team standpoint, there's a lot of ways you can get pinched in. But the other side of it is, if the NFL doesn't add games to this, like, Deshaun Watson's going to come back in the middle of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Like, the first time we see him, he's going to be wearing pink. Like, what's that? I mean, just the conversation all week when he comes back is going to be about that. The NFL is really stuck here. And then the other side of it from Deshaun's camp is, if they appeal it, they get an injunction, and this goes all the way into next year. Are they going to then, is the NFL going to try and take game checks out of next year's salary? Because that's a wildly different amount than it is for this year. So the complexity is still to face this thing. Like, I just wonder if we're about to get buried in court for the next year.
ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz hanging out with us here on 1410 ESPN Radio, the Justin Kinder Show with Kev Nash, minus Kev Nash today, of course. I opened the show with this, Jason. It's pretty interesting. I look at Major League Baseball right now, who they're always scratching and clawing to get headlines, right? And we're getting to the point where their postseason's coming up, and it's almost impossible for them to kind of lead the sports news cycle with their biggest month of the year, which is October, of course. But I thought they've done a pretty good job today of hanging, basically kind of hanging with their own a little bit, because you have all this news of Deshaun Watson, of course, the drop today about the Dolphins, which we'll get to in a moment. But really, a lot of the shows are spending a lot of time on the Juan Soto trade with the Padres. A suggestion I made is that I think Major League Baseball should move the trade deadline to that first week in September. But I know that's very close to the postseason, but can you imagine the sprint to the finish line? It would add urgency. You get Juan Soto right now, and it's fun, and everyone's tuning in, but it's going to fizzle out here in 3 weeks, as there's still 2 long months of the season left to be played. I would love to see the Major League Baseball trade deadline do it different than other sports. I would drop it later in the season. Who knows what other injuries can come up? These teams are not, they're leveraging their future to get a big name like Soto and others. What if there's a big injury that comes up here in the next 2 weeks and now all of a sudden they're out of it, everything they traded for something that's still 2 months away? I would love to see move it to September. You make these trades. You have these pennant races. You have 4 weeks to get this done. The urgency, the excitement, I think that draws more fans in. I don't know your thoughts on my suggestion of moving the trade deadline to early September instead of early August.
As long as it's done before we get to week 1 of the NFL season, because they'll get buried in content there, right? So they'd have to do it before then. But I love the idea. The later you make a trade deadline, I think the better for any sport. Like, it gives you a real opportunity for a team that doesn't realize they're going to be competitive to get out there. And for a team like the Orioles that today, over the last couple of days has made some moves, they might make even more closer to the end of the season. But to your point, the one thing that I would say is Major League Baseball has had a big win today, a lot of attention. Juan Soto, one of our guys said, I think it was Tim Kirchin today, said it was the biggest trade in baseball history. That's how much emphasis he's putting on it. So it took the biggest trade in baseball history for it to cut through, but it definitely did cut through. I mean, that's the sort of deal that everybody's going to pay attention to. But you're right. The closer we get to all of it, like, I want the Padres and the Dodgers to be a race to the finish all the way through the playoffs. And I want some level of animosity between these two teams. Like, I want the soap opera to build. So whatever gives me the best soap opera, and the closer you get to the finish line when you press the sprint button, the better the outcome always is.
And I asked this earlier, here in Dayton, it's Reds country over here, of course. And I asked, which fan base do you feel more bad for? Do you feel bad for a fan base like the Reds, who the biggest 2 significant names that we've seen the Reds have to trade that they developed, at least, is Johnny Cueto and Luis Castillo recently. If you don't know who they are, totally fine. Don't expect you to, but whatever. But, it's tough to watch them go, but they weren't like legitimate superstars in Major League Baseball. You look at the Nationals fans who have had to lose Trey Turner and lose Max Scherzer and lose Bryce Harper and now lose Juan Soto. And I'm sure I left a name out in there in the mix of it all. But I think that's tougher to be a fan base of a team that literally they show signs of being a good organization. They draft well. They develop real well. I mean, they're not just developing good players. They're developing elite superstar players, but they have no interest in keeping them. I think it's very tough to be a Nats fan more than it is to be a fan of a team like the Reds, who just never seem to throw out elite talent the way we see the Nationals. I actually, as big of a headline as it was today, I actually think it's a kind of a sign of a big issue in baseball where you have teams who just don't want to keep their star players. Here we are reading about the Dolphins who are getting investigated and almost penalized for tanking, and we act like that's such a big deal. But we have so many teams in baseball that they don't even want to keep their star players. I think that's more of an indictment on pro sports than tanking, in my opinion.
100%. And it's the biggest problem that baseball faces. And frankly, the other just kick in the gut to every Nationals fan is that how many of those guys you mentioned that have become superstars or are still playing at an incredible level. And if you're looking at Soto, he's 23 years old and you couldn't keep him in the building. Like, the NFL has restructured their entire contract situation to make sure that young talent can stay in the building. The NBA, for all of the player movement that we talk about, has found ways with their bird rights to make sure that guys can stay with teams that develop them. And Major League Baseball doesn't care because their TV money is where they're making 90% of their money. They don't really care how many people are in the stands. They know they're going to get paid either way. It's a broken system for Major League Baseball. It doesn't incentivize winning in any way, shape, or form. And what's funny is that baseball does a really nice job of getting random teams into the World Series every year. But still, if we're going to talk about competitiveness across the league, it's too often that you see a team make a quick run and all of a sudden they're in there and then they get ripped apart. Everybody takes the money they got from it. They run back to the bank with it and baseball doesn't grow as a result. Like, Juan Soto playing for the Padres is terrible because he was being developed in Washington. Like, what do you do for everybody that wanted to be able to have the billboards? Like, that stuff matters. If you get your quarterback in the NFL, if Joe Burrow is the guy, he's going to be the guy for the next 15 years. That's how you get power in branding and you actually connect to a fan base. Baseball just doesn't give a damn about that, and it's a shame.
To kind of revert back to the NFL side with kind of tying that in a little bit as being a problem, the Dolphins news that dropped today, which, by the way, Jason, I don't know about you, but I just find the timing of, hey, by the way, we finished the report. We finished, here's our findings and here's our punishment that we're handing down. I wonder how long they sat on that because I just find the timing. They would much rather be getting negative press for looking for tampering than for, of course, the mess that the Browns and Deshaun Watson have brought upon the league is from a perception standpoint. But your overall takeaway for what came down today with all the icky stuff we talked about yesterday with Deshaun Watson and the Browns, I found today's severity of it to just be kind of a laughing matter that we're this bummed about something like this, like with tampering, which seems like so just back burner right now.
Yeah, I mean, you took one draft pick in the first round for a team that has two next year. You took a third round pick, which may or may not be a starter, and you took $1.5 million from a guy that's worth $8.2 billion. So I did the math at the calculator at work, and for somebody that's worth $100,000, the equivalent would be $18. So you took $18 from Stephen Ross, and you took a first round pick and a third round pick. Frankly, like, why is this even honestly, if they had gotten Brady or Sean Payton, it would have been worth that price all day, every day. So I don't think it was enough to deter a team from actually, tampering moving forward. And it was weird for me in my mind for the NFL to put this out right now. Like, this isn't a pressing matter. So why don't you wait and just go ahead and drop this on a Friday? Nobody would care about it. To put it out today, it's almost like they're trying to say, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain and get everybody distracted from the Deshaun Watson conversation. That makes no sense. Like, I'm genuinely curious to see what happens. If the NFL decides on Thursday to appeal or not to appeal, it's going to be the biggest story Thursday. But Thursday night's a Hall of Fame game. Once we get into preseason football, are people still going to just be obsessed with it? I don't know. So I wonder if the NFL is just hoping that the fact that games are being played makes us start paying attention to other things. But this just felt like a news dump of stupidity to me.
All right, ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz. Jason, beyond appreciate you taking time. Like I said, I know you're pulling double, triple, quadruple duty all over the place, but this is the fun time of year to be talking sports. No more lists, no more Mount Rushmores. It's just strictly about NFL and the upcoming season. So I'm pretty excited about that. Jason, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you, my friend. Be well.
All right, ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz. Good stuff right there. All right, so during our conversation with Jason Fitz, some news had broke. Of course, the MLB trade deadline, of course, is going to be coming up here later on this evening. We're not too far off from that. The Reds have been active at this trade deadline, not adding, but subtracting. We said goodbye to Tyler Naquin. We say goodbye to Luis Castillo. Well, we just said goodbye to another name that was a fan favorite on the Cincinnati Reds roster. We'll talk about that when we come back.
Listen to this station anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Odyssey. That's AUDACY.
There's nothing like hearing the songs you love on local radio with no subscriptions and no monthly fees. But there's a new bill in Congress that could stop the music. If passed, this bill would tax your local radio station simply to play the music you love. Text LOCAL to 52886 and ask Congress to support local radio stations. Help us keep you connected to the music, local news, weather, and traffic that you need each day. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Don't stress about finding a new job. Let Express Employment Professionals help. Visit expresspros.com for good local jobs in a variety of industries.
The roar of our engines, the pump of our heartbeats, the pedal to our metal, the sparks that ignite us, the pistons that push us, the passions that drive us. From the feelings that move us to the places that pull us on the roads that unite us. With nearly 6,000 stores and over 17,000 auto care centers, Napa has America's largest network of parts and care, here to keep you firing on all cylinders.
I wanted to know why some people who get COVID-19 get it so bad. I found out it may be because they have a high risk factor, such as heart disease, diabetes, being overweight, smoking, and asthma. Even if symptoms feel mild, These factors can increase your risk of COVID-19 turning severe. So if you're at high risk and test positive, there are things you can do, like asking your healthcare provider if an authorized oral treatment is right for you. Learn about an option at treatcovid19.com. This message is sponsored by Pfizer.
Over the last year and a half, we all learned some hard lessons. One of the most important is that you can't put off the inevitable. Hi, this is Mark Davis at Dayton Memorial Park Cemetery and Mausoleums. No matter how hard it is to think about, we all need a final resting place. When pre-planning with your funeral home, please remember that cemetery arrangements must also be made. Call us today at 937-890-1831 or visit our website at DaytonMemorialPark.com. And remember, Dayton Memorial Park is a beautiful place to celebrate life.
I want to take more chances with the embroidering.
Henley's vision for a new clothing line is coming into focus.
Dramatic.
They'll need an on-staff photographer to put their collection in the spotlight.
Why is no one taking shots of these?
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Staples has everything for school at great prices. So this year you won't go back to school. You'll be ready to move forward and build that papier-mâché volcano.
I am not cleaning this up.
Ooh, yeah, I meant the kids. Staples will help them move forward. Right now, Crayola 24-count crayons and 4-ounce Elmer's glue are just 50 cents each, and 1-inch binders are only $1.99. Everything on your list at amazing prices. Staples, we're not going back. We're going forward to school. Ends 8/27 in-store only, limit 30.
Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken is excited to announce their new delicious spicy bourbon chicken sandwich is here. It's the best of both worlds. Their spicy bourbon dippers that you love brought into a sandwich you'll crave. It's made with their famous spicy chicken sandwich, smothered in their special bourbon barbecue sauce, dripping with flavor on a brioche bun. Enjoy it in a combo with your favorite side and a drink, priced just right at only $6.99 and only available at Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken Miami Valley locations. Lee's, famous for spicy bourbon chicken.
At Family Dollar, we've got more of what you want for back to school. You'll find your favorite cereals, plus a huge selection of apparel and footwear. Family Dollar, helping you do more.
There are many ways to catch the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio, weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. You can catch it live right here on 1410 Wing AM, or you can stream the show at wingam.com. But now we have another way that you can take in the show. You can now watch the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash live on ESPN Dayton's Facebook page. Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio.
And we are back. I'm Justin Kinner hanging out with you here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. The Reds last night traded away Tommy Pham, which really, look, we shouldn't be surprised. Anytime the Reds name gets brought up in any kind of trade between now and the deadline coming up here just around the corner, we shouldn't be surprised. Look, we knew we were going to most likely bid farewell to Luis Castillo, and the Reds did that this past Friday night. The first guy to be moved from the roster, of course, was Naquin. Bid farewell to him. That's why I was laughing. I almost blame our fan base for how low our bar is for players that we're sad to see go. Like, we shouldn't be sad to see Tyler Naquin go. Tommy Pham, we shouldn't be sad to see him go. Tyler Mahle, who was just moved by the Cincinnati Reds. He's one that I could understand why people are a little upset just because they drafted him and they developed him, and he did pretty good. It took a while, but he developed into something pretty solid. The Reds just acquired infielder Spencer Steer, which is the Twins' number 7 prospect, according to Major League Baseball Pipeline. Infielder Christian Encarnacion Strand, of course, the number 23 prospect. And then left-handed pitcher Stephen Hahar, the number 18 prospect from Minnesota, in exchange for Tyler Mahle. By the way, can't say enough about the job that Nick Krall has done. Nick Krall, the GM for the Reds, done a fantastic job, by the way. Like, I know people like to beat up on him. I defended him a little bit yesterday, talking about the fact that, hey, that's a guy that was kind of put into an uncomfortable situation. He is the face of all the decisions that are being made, decisions that I don't think he would want to make unless he was being forced to make them. If his job is to go and take the roster and flip it into something that could potentially be playoff World Series worthy down the road, I'd say that he's done a pretty good job right now. Now everyone says, well, they're prospects until they're suspects until we know exactly who they are. That's fine, but everyone's playing by those same rules. Every time a trade is made for most teams like the Reds, it's to get those prospects and turn them into contenders and to turn them into elite, players. Right now, the only way to at least feel like you're on the right path is to get the top prospects. Your best chance of developing these guys is to get as many of the top prospects as you can. The Reds flipped Tyler Mahle into quite a get. You add what they were able to get to what they got for, of course, Luis Castillo. And then you go back and you rewind all the way to what they did, in March and what they were able to get for Eugenio Suarez and Jesse Winker. Look, I don't think that the Reds have done a lot of really good things this year that does not involve the product on the field currently. Outside of the development of Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo, Graham Ashcraft, Jonathan India, and obviously, Tyler Stevenson, and I know I'm probably forgetting a name or two, and that's fine, but they've developed those. Like the Reds, the biggest knock I had on the Reds during the first rebuild was, okay, they went out and got prospects. They did not get the return that they should have during that rebuild, but they went out and got prospects, but they did a horrible job developing them. Tyler Mahle finally turned into something that was worth trading this year, but how long did it take to get him to that point? And my point is that this isn't a shot at Tyler Mahle, but I'm just tired of our bar being so low as Reds fans that we're sad to see a Naquin go, that we're sad to see Tyler Mahle go. It finally took a 3-4 month stretch of Tyler Mahle for me to say I'm bummed to see him go. Up until this season, I wouldn't have been bummed to see him go. But it also shouldn't take 6-7 years to fully develop every single piece that comes through. Folks, do you realize that the Reds have done more with Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo? If you combine the amount of years that both of those guys have been in the system, they have done more with them in less amount of time than what they've done with this whole entire, what seems to be 20 years with Tyler Mahle. I'm glad that they were able to take Tyler Mahle and turn him into some prospects in return. But let's be clear. Tyler Mahle, it's not as if he was a top 3 pitcher for the Reds. Now, that's not true. He was a top 3 pitcher for the Reds, but let's keep in mind, he's a top 3 pitcher for the Reds. He's a top 3 pitcher for the Reds. That's not saying much for as poor as the Reds have been pitching-wise as of late. I mean, over the last couple of years, they've obviously had Sonny Gray and Luis Castillo and Trevor Bauer, and he was always one of your better 4s and 5 pitchers. Okay, that's fine. You need those guys, but there's still better options out there. Tyler Mahle could be a very good, for a hell of a pitcher, by the way, for the Twins to be getting, heading into this postseason stretch here, of course, whether you're a playoff team or not. But look, at the end of the day, good for the Twins for acquiring him, but good for the Reds for moving on. But we got to raise our standards. While the Nationals are upset while the fan base of the Nationals, they're upset because they've had to bid farewell to Bryce Harper. They've had to bid farewell to obviously, Soho and guys like that. They're the ones that should be upset. We shouldn't. Oh, we had to say goodbye to Nate Quinn. Who cares? Good riddance. See ya. Oh, well, he hasn't been bad for the Reds. Again, stop with he hasn't been bad for the Reds. The Reds are bad, which means he obviously wasn't enough to help push them over that line that we needed them to get to. Look, the Reds have been bad for a long time. Even when they added talent to the roster, the overall lack of depth of the roster swallowed up what talent was there. Look, I'm just tired of the loser mentality from Reds fans. Oh, I'm so bummed to see Naquin go. I'm excited to see Naquin go. I was glad to see Luis Castillo go. I'm glad to see Tyler Mahle go because you were a part of the stink that was the Reds. Like, I'm excited about the future of the Reds. I'm excited. When I think of the Reds, I want to think of Hunter Green. I want to think of Nick Lodolo, Graham Ashcraft, Jonathan India, Tyler Stevenson. Like, those guys are just, they've producing right off the bat. There is no, we need to wait 4 or 5 years for these guys to turn into something. There's great now. I'm just look, I'm glad Luis Castillo's gone. I'm glad that Tyler Naquin's gone. I'm glad that Tyler Mahle's gone. Get rid of the stink that has been a part of this previous rebuild. I'm over it. The Reds have they have a brighter future ahead because of guys like Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Graham Ashcraft, and everything because of the job that we're seeing from the front office, believe it or not. I'm not a microphone. I'm not a show for the front office by any means, but all I'm saying is they're doing a very good job. They have kicked ass with this rebuild. I'm mad that they are rebuilding, but they have kicked ass with this rebuild, and that's all that matters. But no, I'm not sad to see Luis Castillo go. We shouldn't be sad at all. Juan Soto for the Nationals. The Nationals fans have a gripe. They just watched a superstar leave their franchise the way they watched a superstar leave their franchise in Max Scherzer and Bryce Harper and Rendon, like in Turner. That fan base has a gripe. We don't. We're sad because we lost Naquin. Give me a break. That's such a loser. Like Reds fans, stop with the loser mentality. We should be glad to see guys like that go who have done nothing to help this team win ball games. Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, those dudes going to help us win some ball games. Tyler Naquin, Tyler Mahle, no. Luis Castillo, and let's be clear, Luis Castillo had a great year this year, and he has shown signs in the past of being a really good pitcher. But the bottom line is, Luis Castillo has never been an April to October pitcher. If you're lucky, you were able to get him in July through September, but we all know what July through September means for the Reds. Doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot. Good riddance. See ya. All the stink that was a part of the previous bad rebuild, they're gone, and I'm glad. More of the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash next.
This isn't Madison Square Garden. These drills probably won't make anyone a number one draft pick. But these players are practicing for something important. While they work on their jump shots, they're also learning teamwork, discipline, self-confidence, how to deal with wins and losses. Skills that will make them winners long after they leave the court. Support high school activities in your community, because